Hey guys, this is Comic and today I'm doing a review for The Amazing Spider-Man issue 23. Before I start talking about this issue, just want to give you guys a couple updates. Of course, I have Comic episode 178, and that show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. So if you want to go check that out, it'll be annotated on Friday, and the exclusive comics for that show will be in the description below. But let's start talking about The Amazing Spider-Man issue 23, which is a tie-in to the Clone Conspiracy. I guess I would recommend you reading this second. At first when I was reading it, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm glad I read this first. But because of the events that happened in the Clone Conspiracy, I would read that first if you don't want that to be spoiled. But technically it was already spoiled in Silk, so if you're reading that story, it doesn't matter. Alright, so let's go into Amazing Spider-Man though. I love this cover here. Pretty sure it's Alex Ross. Yes, Alex Ross. And I was really excited for this issue because it's finally Gwen and Peter having this discussion. And I was wondering if it was going to be a full issue of Gwen or would it just be like, here's one page of Gwen and the rest is about Ben. But no, it actually is all about Gwen. So if you are a fan of this relationship, you're a fan of Gwen Stacy, this is a must-read issue. So let's get into the artwork before I start talking about the story. This is from Comicoli's artwork. Still not a huge fan for the same reasons. I haven't been a fan of his art. Again, it's just my subjective opinion. I don't really like the eyeliner thing going on. I don't love the line work. I feel like it's too bold. And then the cheekbones I still think is weird and makes the shape of the face is weird. But the facial expressions were there. I like the paneling. So I enjoyed those aspects of it, but still it's not totally my style of artwork that I like. So that's just a small complaint. Again, that is subjective. But let's start talking about the story. So with this issue, like I said, it is Gwen and Peter. They have this little scene in Clone Conspiracy where they kind of lead into this, which I wish they gave a little asterisk and saying, if you want to read more of Gwen and Peter, read Amazing Spider-Man. They didn't do that, but I have Clone Conspiracy right next to me. It's that little part where Peter says, I love you to Gwen, and then Gwen just pretty much says, I forgive you. Oh no, he says, I'm sorry, and I forgive you. So that little panel over there leads us into this book. Kind of wish it gave us a little bit more of a transition there, but that's more towards Clone Conspiracy. But yes, that's how it transitions into this issue, where we finally get to see Gwen and Peter interact with each other and have a discussion. And Peter pretty much says, I've been through this before and I don't believe you're the real Gwen. And Gwen has a true heart-to-heart to try to convince Peter that this is the right thing and she's the real Gwen, and it's hurtful that Peter is saying that she's not. And it's also, if you're a big fan of classic Spider-Man, it goes back to the days of, like, even Mary Jane, where Gwen says, you know, I always knew Mary Jane was in the wings, and I'm okay with that, and I hope you were happy. And then Peter, of course, says, no, you know, we were happy for a time, because Peter always messes things up, and Gwen says that. You don't want to be happy. You're preventing this, and maybe this arc will help Peter to realize he wants to be happy in his life. We'll see. But it was a discussion Peter needed for a very long time, probably since Brand New Day, and it is Gwen who has this discussion with him, but he's never convinced that this is the real Gwen. And then by the end, we do have the cliffhanger that leads us into Clone Conspiracy, that these things is ringing, and our clones are melting pretty much. So what happens? You get a little glimpse of what happens in the end of issue 4 of Clone Conspiracy. So that's why I'm saying, like, it depends on how you want to read it. It does spoil the ending of Clone Conspiracy, so you probably want to read Clone Conspiracy first. But like I said in the beginning of this review, Silk already spoiled it. So maybe it doesn't really matter what way you read this tie-in. But I love this book. Again, the artwork wasn't for me, but I love the story. I really enjoyed it as, you know, someone who's loved Spider-Man all her life. I thought it was this perfect love letter to Gwen and Spider-Man, but in so many ways it's kind of a love letter to Spider-Man of himself, because it really delves into his character. It really delves into what type of hero he is and why he does the things he does, and goes into the theme of this book of always feeling guilty and sad and all these things because he loses people all the time. It delves into that even stronger in this issue, and it's Gwen who has that discussion with him, one of the people that knows him the most. And then there's fun scenes here. Like, I love the scene when they're trying to explain Spider-Gwen pretty much. It says, oh, you know, I don't really know how that girl really took my place, and Peter's like, well, she's a lot like you. It's like, how? You know, she's not like me. And he's like, well, except that she's in a band. And then they make fun with the Mary Jane thing. I like that Mary Jane was a part of this discussion. Not that she was physically there, but Mary Jane definitely had a place in the discussion, which is important with a Gwen and Peter discussion. It always goes back to kind of that love triangle. Who did Peter belong to? Mary Jane or Gwen? Who would he end up with if Gwen stayed alive? It also kind of has that Betty-Veronica love triangle going on, which I always say that Spider-Man is very Archie-like, and this issue kind of definitely reminded me of that. Yeah, overall, I love this issue. If you really enjoy this relationship, I think Dan Slott does a beautiful job with the dialogue here, and it's just a great character-driven issue. Do you need to read it? If you're not a Gwen Stacy fan, you probably don't need to read it, but that's what a tie-in is. It just adds more to the event. It doesn't have to, you know, progress the plot. It's just a character-driven story, and it's not a filler by any means either. So I actually gave this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this issue. Honestly, it probably would have been 5 stars if it wasn't for the art, but I really enjoyed this, and I totally recommend it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. And don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.